Hello, welcome to the next GDCh and ChemistryViews video. My name is Vera Köster and today we have with us Bert Meijer.
Thank you, it's a pleasure.
The GDCh just honored you with the Hermann-Staudinger Award. Can you say a few words what that means for you?
Yeah, it's incredible. First of all, to get an honor from the country that is so strong in polymers and macromolecules, but then with an award that is named to the person that really created the field of macromolecules is something I'm very proud of. And also what is nice that is he started as an organic chemist and then went into polymers, macromolecules, also started in organic chemistry and moved into polymers. And so it's great to do. Although I have to say that due to our science, we also came back to the old discussion, what is actually a polymer? And not necessarily it's always a macromolecule, it can also be a supramolecular polymer. But maybe we can discuss that in more detail.
Yeah, and I think that would be interesting if you would maybe time travel and meet Staudinger, or he would time travel. So you changed the definition or added something to the definition?
No. That's certainly not the case. At that time, it was a really revolutionary idea to call it macromolecules. And the best way to see there was an original idea is that it took many years before everyone accepted it. That's the best invention you can do, that it takes time before everyone acknowledges that it's important. So it was great, and for many decades and even today it's macromolecules that is serving the world. Only you could go back and think by yourself, is it really needed to have a covalent bond, or is it possible to have a strong, what we call non-covalent secondary injection bond? And that's how we started it, and it started as a curiosity. At the end, it turned out to be also useful. And now today, where sustainability and recycling is an important issue, maybe we could add something to that great work of Staudinger at the end. But where he's here, we're just doing a little bit over this.
Okay, so what fascinates you most about your research?
Actually, what I like the most to see young people growing. So I always tell when someone new is in the group, we're not a research institution, but an educational institution. And the only thing I want to do is to help you to get your dreams come true for your career and for your future. And we do that in order to do science at the frontiers of what we don't know or what we know. And that is just to learn what it is, to come up with new ideas, to solve problems that haven't been solved before. But always remember, it is your task to grow. We don't hire people to do a job. We give people the opportunity to work on their career in areas that I think are very fascinating, and they have to fill it in as well. And that's what I learned from my PhD advisor, Hans Wijnberg in Groningen University in the north of the Netherlands, where he was so stimulative in order to get people to grow. And he helped me, in order to grow. And that's something I really appreciated very much, and that's what I do at a university. Mm-hmm. So you could say you haven't talked anything about the science you're excited about, but the most exciting thing is that I see young people growing, and I'm extremely pleased that so many young people out of my group, or our group, is now either in industry, very successful. Many of them have an academic career. Actually, I see former students getting awards and very famous awards. So that is something I like, most of it.
That's great. But coming back to your research, how did you came to macromolecular chemistry?
Yes, that's a nice story. So I did my PhD in 1982 as an organic chemist. And at that time we had the oil crisis, and there were actually no jobs at all and difficult to find. And then I got an offer to start at Philips Research. And there I learned that everything I was excited about at my PhD, they were not interested at all. So I had to go into a totally different area that I didn't like at all at the beginning. And then suddenly I realized that working on polymers is an interesting phenomenon. And then we went into conjugated polymers and conductive polymers and making devices out of it. I liked it very much. And then at Philips, at that time, it was really an electronic company. And I thought, if I want to go up and make some kind of career, I have to move out. And then I could go to DSM, it's a chemical company very close here to Aachen. And there I learned the real polymer science. And I came up with that idea about supramolecular structures. We came up with dendritic macromolecules. And I suddenly realized when I moved to the university that at that time, combining the knowledge of organic chemistry with that of polymer chemistry or polymer science is the best way to go. And I was extremely lucky that at time of my career, that field exploded. And many at the time young people and a few senior people moved in, and it was a journey of excitement and new things that came up. And so I was just lucky.
Yeah, so are there things you're especially proud about your research?
Yeah, but it may be difficult to say. Actually, the only things that I'm really proud of is the ones I really did myself with my own hands. And the most stupid one has nothing to do with polymers. It was an organic one. I'm trained in stereochemistry and chirality. And so everything with chirality I'm proud of, what we do. And the most stupid thing I did was having a molecule that is achiral, so there's no enantiomer, of two ketones like this on an adamantane. And if one would be in the excited state, it would be chiral. And I synthesized that molecule with this one in the excited state with 84% yield, this one over this one. And that lived for about 2 nanoseconds, and then we could measure the circular polarization of the light that came out of what was called chemiluminescence. That was the most exciting part. The only problem was that in the 2 nanoseconds, the molecule racemized, like this. So later on, one of the first graduate students at the university repeated it with the carbonyls further apart. So, I don't know. That's what I'm still. Now, obviously, there are many aspects in our work, but it's all done by graduate students and postdocs and collaborators. And that what you really did yourself with your own hands is something very special. I compare my job now a little bit with soccer. I'm a real soccer fan. And so I'm more the trainer or the coach. I don't score any goal. The goals are scored by the people on the field. And they're the ones that should enjoy. And obviously I'm excited when something comes out. We just had some exciting new results, and then I can't sleep because I want to understand how this goes. And I will explain some of the conference today. But yeah, I only see it when they tell me what they do, and sometimes I'm looking how they do it, but it's different.
And how do you educate your students for the problems coming in the future? Is that?
It's partly stimulating them and trying to have a group in which somewhere that's in the air to do. You also don't want to push. You just want to make sure that they can do it themselves, and they can learn and they can do. And I try to give them all of the opportunities to do this. But I'm not the person who, certainly not to say, if you want to take an NMR, come with me and I will explain how it will go, because that NMR that we bought, I haven't used at all myself, so even don't know where the tube should go in. I don't know.
And because of your industry experience and background, do you think you see you approach things differently? Maybe more from a market perspective, or?
Yeah, this is a difficult issue because everyone wants to do science that on the long run has a future that is useful for a lot of people and preferentially for society at the end. But working in industry for so long, you also come to the conclusion it's extremely difficult to get something from the lab into the marketplace. And so, in contrast to many others, I'm a little bit hesitant to combine fundamental with applied in one type of subject. So actually I try to do fundamental research with the hope that that starts with maybe someone else, hopefully with ourselves, but typically with someone else, that person will suddenly think, hey, I can use it for this. And if I do something that is really applied, I really want to have it applied. A nice example is, I think, we work on biomaterials for tissue engineering and for stem cell growth, organoids. I started to combine new ideas with what the cell biologists needed. And then Hans Klevers, who was the collaborator that I did it with in Utrecht, he's a world famous for his stem cells organoid structure. It was clear he just needed one that worked. He was not interested in our molecular features and things. And I suddenly realized that if you really want to solve that problem, you have to solve that problem. And not trying to combine solving that problem with new fundamental insights. So I have a little bit what Science Magazine uses for their papers. It's either fundamentally new or it's applied new. And everything in between they're not interested in. There's a chance that if you go in between, and I have to be careful because many people like that area, but there's a chance that it is neither fundamentally new and it will not be used at all. So that means that all of the things that we didn't brought to products ourselves, but other people did.
Okay.
The result is I didn't make any money out of this, but at the end I'm happy that it is in the marketplace. So that's.
But you still have a few patents and I think 2 companies.
Yeah. But that is more. So when we came up with the supramolecular polymer, we have that patent on it, and that then was a graduate student who liked to start a company, so he started that company, and he's doing that with other people. So these polymers are now in human beings for tissue engineering. So trying to make actually a heart valve in which, but that's done by another company, so it's not with that company. And the other company that we started is a contract research company, of which the stocks are all owned by the university, so not to make money, but to, and that is, they do contract research. So that means that there is a company who wants to do something, they come, for instance, they come to me what I could help, because we could do, but then it's best to do this in collaboration with that company, contract research, because then all the intellectual property is for you, I will support to do this. You have to pay for this, and that's what it is. And that is due to the fact that when I started, a long time ago, I had one graduate student paid by industry, but that person was not allowed to talk about it. And then at the end, he wanted to go to the company, but the company didn't want to hire him and I thought, this is not the way to go. So all of the graduate students and postdocs that are in my group for all of these 30 years are all paid by European money or National Science Foundation money or award money or whatever. So I never had industrially paid graduate students or postdocs. Is that good or bad? I don't know. For me, it works out well, and for others, they want to do it differently, which is perfect. But it doesn't mean that we don't help industry in order to bring our chemistry to support what they want to do, but that we have this group of now 12 people that day in, day out work for contract research. And they make a little bit of money and they give that to us, and with that we can do fundamental research.
That's great. And yeah, how do you think can we better communicate the importance of chemistry and maybe also credibility of chemistry to the general public?
That is the most difficult question to answer, and it's also the most important question to answer. I think we have to do that in the proper way. I don't know how it's in Germany, but in the Netherlands also a growing part of the population don't believe in science anymore. They thought that also the COVID vaccine is not real and it was all installed. So it's a very difficult thing to do it right. So we shouldn't oversell. That's the first thing. And people like to hear the future of something, that you find something and everyone is asking, and what can you do with this? And then people are almost forced to say, this will solve this problem, which is dreaming a little bit, but it's very difficult to get. So what I did when we, about 12 years ago, we got a big grant, and at that moment I decided that part of that money will be used to get in communication with people at high schools. We supported a foundation that brought up on internet stories about science for high school kids. Mm-hmm. Then that person, Esther Toller, who did the writing, we proposed to write a book, and she wrote a book for high school in Dutch in order to explain what it is to make artificial life and what you do all with polymers in that area, in chemistry in that area. I made a special lecture for festivals, pop festivals.
Okay.
So one of my most famous lectures is at the Lowlands Pop Festival. There's 50,000 people are coming there.
And how does that work? I mean, how are people attracted? They necessarily don't come there to listen to.
But not all 50,000. 1,500 were in the tent, and I made a lecture why we can't make life, and our field was in the midst of the talk. That was the challenge, the scientific challenge, and there I explained what we don't know yet and why it's important to do this, and explain a lot of science. I do that for high schools. I do this for. I've done it in Mainz. I've done it in Berlin and different everywhere around the world. When I get asked, I'll give that lecture for public at large. But at the end, how many people do you get in contact with? It's on YouTube or it's on internet. You can find a TEDx talk or so is in it. But I think it's difficult. In the past, the public at large was more interested in science and the basics. Science is also becoming extremely difficult to communicate because we don't do the simple things. We do directly go into very detailed. I think astronomers are doing a great job, and we can learn from this as chemists. Mm-hmm. I think we should put much more effort in order to do this. Also to explain to the public at large what is the difficulty for sustainability, what do we want to achieve, what we have done in the past, where we're now today. I think we need to put much more effort into it. I don't know exactly how to do it, but and have a story at a certain moment to tell, because the chemistry, I don't know, it's in Germany, but in general it doesn't have a good name. Chemistry is all explosions, dirt, toxic, whatever it is. While if you carefully look to the chemistry, it made it every year better, cheaper, less energy, less toxic. It's incredible what can be achieved, and we don't sell it in the right way. I don't know. Yeah, it's a very. If you have a good, I would love to work on this with more time, but we have to do that together and have the same voice and the same message. And I think at the moment, too many people have different messages, and then at the end, the only thing that remains is explosions and toxic things. I don't know. Maybe it's good to have. There's a nice story again about soccer. So in Eindhoven you have PSV, and at a certain moment the coach was fired. Mm-hmm. In the newspaper there was the chemistry between the coach and the player was gone. I thought, oh, okay, we understand what that means. And then there was a letter from one of the readers of the newspaper saying, I don't understand what it is. The chemistry is not good anymore. Chemistry is explosions and so chemistry is by definition bad. So it should be there is chemistry between the coach and the players, because the public at large thought that chemistry was something bad. Yeah. Which is ridiculous.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
So what other interests do you have outside of chemistry? Soccer, I guess.
Yeah, but I'm not a soccer player myself. So I play tennis, and I bike a little bit. But to be honest, I use too many hours for work, for chemistry, because it's my work and it's my hobby. That's a little bit the difficulty. But since about 2.5 years, I have a granddaughter, and now since 2 weeks, 3 weeks, also a grandson. They live in the same town as where we're living, and our youngest son lives in Sydney. So I also pay now more attention to the grandchildren, because maybe I didn't have enough time for the children, so I want to pay back for the grandchildren, and yeah, I have to find out how that will work out.
Thank you for the interview.